Common Knowledge is brought to you by PureMTGO.com and InkedGaming.com. Use coupon code CCMTG10 at checkout for a 10% discount on all Inked Gaming supplies and accessories. You can support the show directly through Patreon at patreon.com/common knowledge.
This is the Common Knowledge Podcast. It's not about the cost, it's about the knowledge. Here are your hosts, Brandon Clark and Lobbert.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 61 of the Common Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon, and joined with me, as always, is my beautiful assistant, Sean, the Lobbert.
What's up, man? How was your week?
Good. It was a good week. Midterms is done, so this week was kind of relaxing and laid back while we roll into spring break this next week. So, yeah, it was nice. How was your week?
Good. I spent a lot of extra time editing the previous episode. I had to go through it 3 times just because of what I wanted to do to it. So I listened to that episode thrice. And I thought it was actually really good. I did end up cutting out a lot of irrelevant segments, things I thought were not good information, and I cut like 20 minutes out of it, and I made sure there were deck lists on screen and cards and stuff. I think it's super great. I'm psyched to try to promote that one a little bit more than I usually do.
Awesome. Yeah, that's way cool. Yeah, and I finally got off my butt and downloaded some software and then taught myself how to use it, so I can start editing the Common Coliseum videos, which I think will be a very good thing. I mean, if that's content that people are paying for, I want it to be good.
Yeah, I think we're just trying to bump up the quality overall. I mean, I think adding just the card giveaway thing is going to be pretty big. Of just, I can be excited about that. It feels like we're doing something worthwhile, and I felt like Common Coliseum was
not worthwhile.
We were trying, but
it was like definitely an afterthought.
It was because we just didn't know what to do with.
Yeah,
we wanted to do something for you guys, but it ended up like I would almost rather not give you that than have it be the quality that it was. So I'm happy that we're working on that.
Yeah, and you just had so much on your plate that you couldn't really, dedicate yourself to it, and so it just sort of fell by the wayside and was just not very good. But going forward, I'm really excited about what we're going to be doing with it.
Did you play any Magic?
I did. I actually, on Tuesday night, went out to Oasis Games and played in their weekly Pauper event.
Yes.
And that was fun. I played Scred Delver.
Doesn't the going there relate to our topic?
Yes, it actually does. Our topic this week, as Sean so elegantly segued, is a brew. I guess not really a brew. I mean, kind of. I don't know.
I want to call it a brew, yeah. Okay,
call it a brew. All right. But I ran into one of our listeners down there at Oasis, and he was playing a sweet deck, and he gave me the deck list, and we're going to talk about it today. And it is eggs.
You brought this up and was like, do you want to do eggs? Somebody gave me a deck list. And I don't think we really go over brews that often on this show because we're trying to more like nail down the metagame and stuff. And I think since the meta has shifted, we've done a lot of episodes to get caught up and up to date on it. And so I think now is a pretty opportune time. And I've tried to brew my own eggs decks quite a few times. So I felt like I could speak to this, so I'm psyched.
Yeah, me too. It was a really cool deck to watch, and to kind of watch it do its thing was fun. And I don't know. The meta is kind of stale right now, and I'm sick of talking about it. And I know listeners are sick of hearing it because they've commented on it, but they're sick of hearing about Blue, Black, Monarch, and Tron week in and week out. We're going to change it up this week, and we're going to talk about a brew, which, I don't know, maybe it has a place in the meta where it can attack from a different angle. I don't know. We'll find out. But first, should we jump into our card of the week?
Yes.
Card of the week.
So compulsive research is 2 and a blue. It is a sorcery. It says target player draws 3 cards and then discards 2 cards unless he or she discards a land card. The reason I chose this is, for some reason, I've been playing against it more, and I've just been thinking about it a lot. I know last week it was in the familiars list that we didn't know at the time, because when we recorded it, it was still like right after the tournament results came out, but the player playing familiars was actually 420 Dragon, the like premier familiars player. So that's kind of interesting, and I wanted to give him a proper shout out that rather than his real name, because
that nobody knows.
Yeah, like we didn't know it, and I mean I'm not going to apologize for that, because he that's not what he goes by. It's 420 Dragon. And then it's also commonly played in Tron decks. Both of those tend to get a lot of lands in their hands. They have plenty to discard, and they both have like big mana. They're really the only 2 decks that play this. It's just a really great source of card advantage. Like drawing 3 cards and then discarding a land card, which you'd prefer to discard anyway. That's optimal anyway. I love this card.
Yeah. I think that for its mana cost, this card gets you the most cards for its mana cost in the format.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's anything else this cheap that just gets you 3 new cards.
I think so. I mean, if you're doing it like per rate, things like Gush, of course, but like when you're actually paying mana for a spell, like
right,
like Thoughtcast is something, but it's still not 3 cards. So yeah, this is really powerful. I know that there was an instant spell that was 3 mana, and you drew 2 cards, and rather than discarding one, you could bounce a land or something like that. People still play compulsive research because they want all their lands on the battlefield, and I don't know, it's just the best there is at what it's trying to do.
Okay, and it is kind of to be said that compulsive research does synergize really well, especially with Tron, where Tron doesn't mind having cards in its graveyard.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and so you draw 3 cards and then pitch a couple cards that you're going to be able to use out of your graveyard later anyway, and it's just tons of card advantage there. Speaking of Gush decks, this kind of seems like it would be the perfect fit to go along with Gush. Gush is returning your lands to your hand. This is discarding your lands to get more cards. What's kind of the big reason that they don't? Is that just if you've Gushed, you don't have enough mana to cast this card?
It feels like it. The mono blue oops all instant spells that was in last month's episode or last week's episode.
Yeah.
They didn't play Gush. They didn't play Daze. They played Force Spike and what was it, Think Twice or Accumulated Knowledge, stuff like that, where they just didn't want to return islands to their hand. They needed all those on the field to play these more expensive spells. So I think that's the reason why you don't see this alongside Gush, but there is a synergy there. So it's worth thinking about, I think.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's some sort of space where a deck like that could exist, but I guess I do see your point. Gush tends to fit better with cheaply costed cards, and compulsive research is one of those things where you want to have a lot of mana so that you can, I don't know, capitalize on all the cards you're drawing, as well as just have a land to throw away to this card that's, extra.
When I'm thinking about the decks, like Tron and Familiars that play this, one is a combo deck, so it's just trying to see as many cards as possible. And Tron, it's not playing a tap-out control deck or anything, but playing compulsive research is tapping your tower and a prophetic prism or something like that. So that doesn't hurt them as much. So if we go along the lines of Familiars, maybe there could be some kind of deck that's looking to just see tons and tons of cards. They're not trying to play like a control Like, if you're playing blue and you're playing control, you want to keep your lands untapped and play things at instant speed. Compulsive Research more fits in with, like, tap out control, I think, or combo. I don't know, maybe those are some good ideas for somebody to brew around.
Yeah, it's a super powerful spell. So I think I don't know, it might have more design space as far as deck building goes than what it's currently seeing. So that's card of the week, Compulsive Research. Let's jump into the main topic.
Main topic.
Eggs.
So, yeah, eggs. Let's just start. I guess let's just go through the entire deck list, and then we can just come through card by card and talk about the choices, the whatever else we want to talk about. Okay. So start off the lands. There are 4 Great Furnace, 4 Seat of the Synod, 4 Vaults of Whispers, 2 Darkstill Citadels, and 13 Mountains.
3 mountains.
What did I say?
13.
Wow, why would I have said 13? Probably because there's a 1 right below it. And so
I forgive you.
My brain just matched those 2 together. Dyslexia strikes again. 1 Springleaf Drum, 3 Scrapyard Salvo, 3 Krark Clan Shaman, 4 Reckless Fireweavers, 4 Disciple of the Vault, 4 Galvanic Blasts, 4 Chromatic Stars, 4 Conjurer's Bauble, 4 Chromatic Spheres, 4 Pyrite Spellbombs, 4 Terrarian to round out the main deck.
Okay, I want to just go through. Well, let's just cover the lands real quick first. So you did say that there was a Reckless Fireweaver in here and Krark Clan Shaman. So the lands being artifacts does matter. And then it's got 2 Darksteel Citadels and 3 Mountains. So apparently that's the amount of red that they need. They do have Chromatic Stars, Chromatic Spheres to fix their mana. They have Terrarians too. So there's a lot of ways to fix mana, but they do need that red more than other things. So they decided that they need mountains. You know, that is a liability in the deck of you now open yourself up to Gorilla Shaman, or, you know, that automatically makes your burn matchup a lot worse. So keep that in mind going forward. And then let's talk about do you want to talk about the creatures? Do you have anything to say about the lands?
No, I don't have anything else to say about the lands. Let's talk about the creatures. So first, I want to talk about Krark Clan Shaman. So this is 1 in a red, 1/1. Sacrifice an artifact. Krark Clan Shaman deals 1 damage to each creature without flying. First thing, he did say that originally this slot was Atog. And he changed it to Krark Clan Shaman.
I can definitely see that. I've played versions of this deck. I think I've played pretty close to this version. Like, I've experimented with all of these cards at the very least. And Atog, unless you're running Fling and Temur Battle Rage, feels like it's just never going to connect. And there's give and take for each of these. Atog is incredibly powerful. I think you it incentivizes you to play those other cards, which don't do anything some of the time. But Krark Clan Shaman, if you're sacking anything to try to stay alive, it's going to go away. And it is only non-flyers, so typically we see this more on the sideboard, but I think this is a sack outlet. It sucks that you have to do it all at once. Like, if you're going to sack, I don't know, you play a Terrarian tapped, you want that card this turn, you have to use your Krark Clan Shaman, and then you're just done sacrificing artifacts until you find another one.
Yeah, and it would seem that, like, you would want to try to save up all of those effects for, like, 1 turn, because you can use the stack, right? You sack it, put the trigger on the stack, sack another, and then you can get a few more activations out of it. I mean, that is a way to kill bigger things too. But I do think, like, the big takeaway from this card is as far as it being removal, I don't think it's very reliable. Or like a board sweeper, not in this format with Spellstar Sprites and battle screeches.
Yeah, I actually find this really awkward. I hope I'm not just going to be beating up on this guy's deck the whole time and he's going to feel bad. I really am just speaking from my own experience. Disciple of the Vault and Kurt Clan Shaman, you're going to want to put out as many Disciple of the Vaults as you can, and then sack everything to Kurt Clan Shaman. If you do that and you end up drawing a card off of one of the cards that you're sacking, I guess Terrarian's really the only one. They have made sure that they're not playing like Ichor Wellsprings and stuff like that, which I think is kind of a shame. Little bit awkward is all. Reckless Fireweaver will live through it, which, that's something. That's something.
Yeah, that is a little better. I mean, honestly, I don't hate the Kurt Clan Shaman. I mean, I think it does a lot of good things for this deck. I think it's definitely better than Atog would be in this slot.
Yeah.
Just as Atog's a good sack outlet, but it's never really attacking.
It's not connecting at the very.
It's not. It'll probably attack, but it's probably not gonna get connect. But this is just a cheap, efficient way to have a sack outlet. If you've got like a Disciple and a Fireweaver going, this is a good way to just sack and get a bunch of triggers really fast. Or you can always just try to clear the way for later turns. Sack a bunch of
alive.
Yeah, and it keeps you alive, which I like too. Sometimes you need setup time.
Admittedly, it will make some of your matchups just phenomenal, like
elves or something.
Now that you mention elves, there's a lot more of those than I was initially thinking. Elves is going to be fantastic. Boggles is going to be great. Stompy, you're just going to run over Stompy.
This is probably a really good for friendlies. Like if you're playing friendly leagues online, this is probably a really good choice. I think it covers a lot of bases with what a lot of the other decks are doing, and it's something that's kind of really unique and hard to interact with for a lot of decks.
Yeah,
powerful. So
out of the sideboard, they're going to be able to interact with you a ton. But
yeah,
that's always been a problem with this deck. Is it's built like a deck that needs to win game one and wants all of its game one matchups to be 60-70% win rate matchups, and then then in game two you've got a 40%, but you have 2 games to bump up your statistics there. I'm going to jump out of the creatures real quick to Scrapyard Salvo. That's another big finisher that they're running, that if they see that game one, they will just put a relic in, save a counterspell, something like that. And it's just for me, it's been really awkward when I've played Scrapyard Salvo.
So let's actually just read this card, because this is one that's new to me too. But Scrapyard Salvo is a sorcery for 1 red that says Scrapyard Salvo deals damage to target player equal to the number of artifact cards in your graveyard.
Yeah, and so it's really easy to construct a scenario where you have 10 artifacts in your graveyard, or you sack everything on the field and you end up having just lethal in 1 Scrapyard Salvo. That doesn't work out as often as you would hope it would.
Yeah, and I kind of one thing I do like a lot about the Scrapyard Salvo is post board. It makes things more difficult for your opponent when it comes to sideboarding, because now they're thinking about boarding in graveyard hate, and it's sort of well, if I don't, maybe they boarded in graveyard hate and they drew their graveyard hate, but then you just killed them with multiple Disciples of the Vault, or vice versa. So it kind of puts a strain on sideboarding for your opponent, which I do kind of like. And game one, it gives you just a really powerful out to just fireball them.
Okay, yeah, and it's not, it is only so many slots. It's only those 3 slots, and you get that powerful effect, and they have to start playing around the other way, so they might have a more clunky hand. That's true, yeah. And it's not like one of those spells you're 2 for 1ing yourself, like Fling or anything like that. So, yeah. What were we going to say?
Yeah. I was just going to say, yeah, I like Scrapyard Salvo. So let's see. We've covered the creatures. We've got let's talk about the last non-egg.
Really
then
quick
we'll talk
before we
about the
move on
eggs.
from the creatures, I just want to say that Reckless Fireweaver, I think, is probably going to hold this deck up a lot. It having 3 toughness is giant. You're going to be a little bit afraid to block with it in a lot of matchups, but it's going to end up doing a lot of damage or being a lightning rod. So all of those things are pretty good. Anyway, you were moving on to the
Is
non-eggs.
Reckless Fireweaver when an artifact comes into play?
It is, yeah. So even the lands trigger it.
Even your lands trigger it? Okay.
So just to review, it's the 1/3
Right.
for a colorless and a red. Every time a artifact enters the battlefield, your opponent takes 1 damage.
Yeah, that card's great. Let's just talk about the last non-egg spell in the deck really quickly, and then we'll talk about the eggs. Galvanic Blast. Is this card good?
Yeah, you're just trying to do a lot of damage to your opponent. It's gonna work kind of like a weird burn deck. You're just trying to get them to 0 without entering combat ever.
Well, I did watch him play a game on Tuesday where he had 3 Galvanic Blasts in his hand, and he was able to get his opponent down to 13. And then he had 3 mana, and his very last egg in hand was a chromatic star. So he didn't have enough mana to play the star, crack it, and then blast. So no matter what he did, he could get his opponent down to 1. So then it came down to like his opponent had lethal on board too, so he was like trying to do this dance of like, how many creatures do I need to have as blockers? Do I play a Fireweaver and then Galvanic Blast him, or do I just like Galvanic Blast all 3 of his creatures? It was a really interesting play point. But I think what he ended up doing was casting a Reckless Fireweaver to block a 2/2, and then Galvanic Blasting one of the bigger creatures, and then his opponent just had everything. Like Lightning Bolt your guy, Lightning Bolt your guy. He was playing Madness. And then it was just like, discard a card to the Wild Mongrel, pump the Basking Root Walla, attack for lethal. So that was kind of rough, but Galvanic Blast is like really, it's just so good. If you can make Metalcraft in your deck, you should have Galvanic Blast. Did we talk about Thoughtcast?
It's not on this list. Did something happen to it?
Must have. I thought I typed it in. Whoops. 4 Thoughtcast. So this is the last non-egg card in the deck list. 4 Thoughtcast. So again, sort of the same vein. If you can make Metalcraft work, you should be playing Thoughtcast. The card's insane.
Yeah, definitely.
We can't have Treasure Cruise, but Thoughtcast is fine. Wizards giving us double standards and mixed signals.
Yeah, let me tell you about how horrible your life is, because stop it. Springleaf Drum really doesn't count as an egg.
No, not really. It's sort of just there's an additional mana source.
Yeah.
There's, 10 creatures in this deck.
It's mana fixing, getting to 3 mana for something like a Scrapyard Salvo. When you're trying to do something else in a turn, like cast 1 or 2 spells that are 1 mana and then Scrapyard Salvo, you need... I mean, how many lands is this total? 17? 17 lands is not that much. You're cutting back there pretty hard, which you can cut back since half of the cards in your deck say draw a card on them.
Yeah, and are like 1 or 2 mana.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into the eggs. So, I guess for anyone who doesn't know, if you're newer to the game, the reason this is called eggs is because you play what are essentially artifact cantrips. Like, they're just cheap 1 mana eggs that you cast, and then you pay a mana to crack them, and then out comes a new card and a mana, essentially.
I want to say an egg is any artifact spell that sacrifices itself.
That you crack. Crack it like...
So, yeah, you're cracking them like eggs. That's the whole thing.
I just remember after Pro Tour returned to Ravnica, when Stanislav Sivka won the modern Pro Tour with eggs, I just remember Brian David Marshall and Rich Hagan doing a deck tech about it and like talking about the archetype. And basically, like, there's just a bowl, and Rich Hagan had his sleeves rolled up. And as Brian David Marshall's talking about it, he's like, "You crack your eggs," and he's just like taking eggs and just smashing them into a bowl. I just remember that. So I
gotta do something while
he's
he's just sitting there moving cards around the table.
Yeah. So yeah, Brian David Marshall's just talking to the camera about what the deck does, and then Rich Hagan's just like smashing eggs in his hand. It was really funny to watch. I bet you could still find it on YouTube. Anyway, so those are what eggs are. Cheap artifacts that you sacrifice to get some sort of an effect out of.
Yeah.
So you crack them and something amazing comes out. So the first 2 eggs are Chromatic Sphere and Chromatic Star. And these are basically the exact same card with different artwork and different names, right?
The only difference is that when Chromatic Sphere... Well, to get the card out of Chromatic Sphere, you have to sacrifice Chromatic Sphere to its own effect. Chromatic Star draws a card if it is destroyed.
No matter what.
Or no matter what. And, of course, unless you exile it.
Yeah. That is a pretty big difference.
So you can crack it to, like, your Cart Clan Shaman, or you can't have your opponent... Like, if you're tapped out and you have one of these on the field, if it's a sphere, they can remove it and you don't get anything.
Yeah. So these are 1 mana, both Chromatic Star, Chromatic Sphere, both 1 mana little artifacts that have the activated ability of 1 tap sacrifice to draw a card and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. I guess in the case of Chromatic Star, it's a separate clause that says when this is destroyed, draw a card.
Yeah.
But
and really quick note, if you really want to feel like you're casting, what's it called? Ancestral Recall. If you have
I know how.
Artifacts,
I know how.
Go ahead.
Unban Treasure Cruise.
No. Okay.
And then cast Ancestral Recall for real. Did I get it right? Was that the right answer?
No. In this deck. So
I'll see myself out.
I just wanted to let people know that there's a cool trick where if you have 4 artifacts on the field and you want to crack your sphere to get the blue for your Thoughtcast, and you're thinking, oh, but then Thoughtcast's cost will be bumped up by 1 because I have to crack it and then play my Thoughtcast. That's not the way it works. You can crack your sphere for the mana for Thoughtcast and just draw 3 cards there. And like it'll count towards reducing the cost of Thoughtcast if you immediately do it like that.
What?
So you have 4 artifacts on the field.
Okay. One of them is Chromatic Sphere.
Yeah, and you have 1 blue mana.
Okay, so you pay your blue mana, you tap and sacrifice as a cost of activation, and now Chromatic Sphere is in your graveyard, and then you get a blue mana. So you have 1 blue mana and 3 artifacts.
So
and then you can't cast Thoughtcast.
I'm saying you can. 100% you can. You can do it on Magic Online. This is a thing. You can put like, you know how you're like, okay, I'm going to declare costs for, like, I'm going to put my Thoughtcast on the table and say I'm now going to pay for this.
So
or you tap your land and then you use the blue that's coming out of the sphere to pay for that Thoughtcast. Does that make sense?
That cannot be right. Is Chromatic Sphere and Chromatic Star a mana ability? Considered a mana ability?
I believe so.
I don't think they are. I'm gonna believe
it works.
I'm gonna believe that you've done this, but I'm also gonna believe that Magic Online just screwed up. That does not sound right.
It doesn't sound right, but it is right.
I mean, I believe that you've done it, or you think you've done it.
No, I've done it, and then I was like someone was
right.
telling me about it because I hadn't even done it on Magic Online yet, and I was like, oh, I wish I could do this, and they're like, oh, you can just do this, and I was like, but then then it's gone, like you're saying, and like I started looking it up, and I was like,
So
By
you put
golly.
Thoughtcast on the stack.
Like, yeah, you're like, I'm declaring I'm going to cast this spell. I now need to pay for it. Tap any color of mana, filter it into the sphere to produce it. You're like, okay, this is now on the stack. I've done this. Sphere triggers, and then you draw a card before Thoughtcast resolves. So then you just draw 3 cards.
That just cannot be right.
It is.
That doesn't make any sense. Huh.
I mean, I think it's for the same reason that if you have a Eldrazi spawn and you're trying to cast a Convoke spell with it, you can tap it for its cost and sacrifice it. Because it's just like you're declaring, like you're like doing the pay costs portion of doing the spell. Gotcha.
Okay, I guess if Chromatic Sphere and Chromatic Star are considered mana abilities, I guess that works. That's the only way I can think of how that works within the rules of the game.
Yeah,
because you can't put anything onto the stack when you're declaring how you're paying for something, you know? So the only thing you could do is tap your lands, tap your cards that are producing mana for mana abilities. So that is my answer, but that is so weird.
It is weird. That's why I wanted to bring it up. And it just really
doesn't.
I'm sorry that it's hard to explain. And
I mean, I understand what you're. No, I think you explained it fine. I just think that
there's someone out there that's still confused.
It doesn't make sense.
I'm apologizing to that person.
I mean, I'm not a rules judge person, so I don't understand it. But like, it doesn't make sense within how I understand the rules of this game. You know, the only explanation I have is that Sphere and Star are mana abilities, and that's how you can get away with doing that while your spell's on the stack. Otherwise, you can't activate an activated ability until you've paid for the costs of your spell, and it's like gone onto the stack, right? And you've received priority again.
Yeah, I bet you it's just a mana ability then.
It must be. That's so bizarre. All right, cool. So fancy tricks.
Okay, and then we have Terrarian that really wants to be a chromatic star, but it just isn't. But it's doing its best. Terrarian is a single mana for an artifact. It enters the battlefield tapped. So there's its first bad impression. And you pay 2 into it and sacrifice it. You add 2 mana of any color combination to your mana pool. When it is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card. So it works the same way that a star does, where if it's put into the graveyard for any other reason, you still draw that card. So it doesn't have the same failing that Sphere does. It does suck a lot of the time that you're actually filtering 2 mana. Like most of the time I wouldn't think that filtering more mana would be worse, but you can't crack this unless you have 2 mana available, and you don't usually need to fix that much at the same time.
Right. I think this looks like a good sacrifice to Krark Clan Shaman kind of artifact.
Yeah, like because it enters the battlefield tapped.
Mana, yeah, enters tapped, and you can just sack it right away for cheap. So that's Terrarian. So those are like the eggs, the basic eggs. And then the last 2 eggs are Conjurer's Bauble and Pyrite Spellbomb.
Okay, let's do Pyrite Spellbomb first. Pyrite Spellbomb is just, it's extra removal. I'll say what it does, I guess. Pyrite Spellbomb is a single mana for an artifact. You can pay a red mana into it and sacrifice it. It will do 2 damage to target creature or player. Or you can pay a mana, sacrifice it, and draw a card. So if you need the card, it's good. If you need a little bit of removal for more time, then it's okay there. You really don't want to be sacrificing it for 2 damage unless you're winning the game with it. I know that I've seen burn lists play Pyrite Spellbomb out of the board so that if they need the card, they can get the card, or if they need to just have once it's resolved, an uncounterable way to kill like a Delver of Secrets or something. It has some nice options there. I really like Pyrite Spellbomb.
Spellbomb is good.
And then there's Conjurer's Bauble. I don't think the effect on this card matters. Right?
I don't think so at all.
Yeah.
Because this isn't really a looping deck.
Yeah.
It's just trying to deal you 20 damage. So this is just one of the cheapest, most efficient ways to kill an artifact.
Yes.
It's 1 mana. It doesn't have a cost to its activation. Just tap, sacrifice it. So I think that's sort of why it's there. I think the other substitution for this card could be like Aether Spellbomb.
I want to say no, and
no?
we didn't say it, and I just want to make sure that we say it. Conjurer's Bauble. Its effect when you tap and sack it is you may put a card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library, and then you draw a card. There are no shuffle effects in this list, so you have to reach the very bottom of your library to actually get this to do anything. If you are putting artifacts on the bottom of your library, then Scrapyard Salvo is less effective. So most of the time, unless you're about to deck yourself, or you plan on being about to deck yourself,
yeah, you need to check yourself before you deck yourself.
It's just really easy to activate. It's even easier than Chromatic Star and Sphere, because you can play it as the last spell you cast in a turn as your very last mana, and you're still able to activate it and draw your card.
Okay. So if you wanted to put Aether Spellbomb into this deck, what slot would you put it in for? Would you go half-half on spell bombs?
One, it's been bad when I've tested it.
Yeah, but Gurmag Angler wasn't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The prime threat in the format last time you were testing this list.
Well, I'd say since the Conjurer's Spellbombs don't do anything, I would say them.
The Conjurer's Baubles?
The Conjurer's Baubles. Conjurer's Bauble, yes.
Okay. So I was right then.
Yeah, you were, yeah. I don't think that would ever happen, and I don't think you want to, but you got the card that I would replace. Right.
You really don't think that you would want to play Aether Spellbomb?
I really don't.
Even as a way to answer Gurmag Angler so that you have, time to not die.
You'd have to be in such a bad position to want to do that instead of getting a card to forward your ability to win the game, that I just don't think it's worth it in saying that's what you want to be doing. I would just want a card that's more aggressive and fits in my strategy.
Okay, that makes sense. Cool. So those are all of the eggs in the eggs deck. Should we talk about the sideboard?
Yeah.
Okay, so the sideboard, we have the 4th Clark Clan Shaman, 3 Hydroblasts, 3 Sunbeam Spell Bombs, 3 Dispels, 2 Pyroblast, and a basic island.
I gotta say about Clark Clan Shaman, I really like their Ironworks. Anyway, the Sunbeam Spell Bombs, those are good.
That's just a concession to burn, right?
Oh yeah, but it feels
that's
great.
The only thing you're bringing in against is burn.
Yeah, because they gain you 5 life or they draw a card. The only
I don't know. If you feel like you need extra time, are they just good against any aggressive strategy to just buy you an extra turn? Or does that even make sense because this has taken up a slot that your extra turn would have given you anyway?
I think it's fog logic, if you understand what I'm saying. I'm going to spend a card so that I get to draw an extra card on my next turn.
I think that's exactly what I was trying to say, but I'm not saying it very articulately. Articulate?
I don't think that's a word.
Yeah, it is articulate.
Yeah, but
I am articulate. Articulately. To say something with articulance.
You didn't articulate that
very well. Sean 2, Brandon 0. All right.
Actually, okay. There's an alternative to Sunbeam Spellbomb. It is the Implement of Improvement. So Implement of Improvement is a single mana for an artifact. It says when it is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card. So it's working like Chromatic Star. and then you can pay a white and sacrifice it, and you gain 2 life. So it's a lot less life than Sunbeam Spellbomb. So I want to say that Sunbeam is the correct choice, but this is like you can have your cake and eat it too, because you get the life and you get the card. So it's not hurting your strategy so much. I was really excited for this entire cycle because I really love artifact strategies, and just none of them have enough oomph to do anything, and it sucks.
Yeah, 2 life is I don't know, like in a lot of cases it sometimes won't even make a difference. Like you're at 4, the difference between 4 and 6 against burn is 0.
Yeah, the closest I've gotten these to working is when I'm playing them, sacrificing them, and then like recasting, like bringing them back from the graveyard, recasting them.
Sure. Yeah, I guess if you can do that, this is just the better card. And if you can cycle it, but
I haven't talked with you about this at all, but at the end of this, I want to go over some other versions of eggs that I've tested, just as like other options people can think about.
Yeah, anyway, for sure.
So we've gone over Correct Clan Shaman and Sunbeam Spellbomb. Hydroblasts are just, wow, they really don't want to die to burn, huh?
I think burn is a really big part of the Oasis meta, so I feel like there's like 2 burn players there of the 10 people that show up regularly.
Yeah.
Regularly to play. So I mean, take that with a grain of salt too, that
this is a meta deck.
Yeah, it is. Choices have been made and tuned to the local meta that this player encounters. So 3 Hydroblasts, 2 Pyroblasts. That's always the split that I kind of like. Like less Pyroblasts, more Hydroblasts, and then load up on Dispels.
Yeah, they do have 3 Dispels in here. If so that's even more ammo against burn if they want to bring it in. I imagine that there's a cutoff point of how many cards they can actually bring in that matchup, but they certainly have the tools if they want to go all out. And then counterspell matchups are really, really hard for this deck because you're cycling through a lot of stuff, you're spinning your wheels, and then you're like, okay, I really need Disciple of the Vault to resolve, and they're like, no, and you're like, okay, I gotta spin my wheels for another few turns.
Yeah. Okay.
You want your wheel spinning to be dealing them damage. That's what this deck does. So
right. Right. And then the last card in the sideboard is a single basic island, which is probably just when you're bringing in your Hydroblasts and your Dispels, you just need an extra mana source.
Yeah, because
to support that.
You're playing so many artifact lands instead of other things, and you're playing Darksteel Citadels anyway, that even with all of your Sphere Stars and Terrarians, you're still hurting for colored mana a lot of the time.
Yeah. I always like seeing land in sideboards. I think that's like a really underutilized tool, is boarding in lands or boarding out lands. I just don't know that it's something people do very often.
I can see it for like Bajuka Bogs and things like that, but when I see an island like this, I feel like that's like the deck list telling me that this deck has a weakness that is so bad that I need to change the base of my deck to even be able to deal with it.
Yeah, and that's why sideboards are so great, right? Like that's what sideboard's for.
100% what it's for. Yes. So you're right. When I see them in a sideboard, I'm like, okay, I got some respect here. This guy knows what he's doing. This has been thought through and played through enough times that they know they need this. But I think it just still shows a weakness, because this deck is really weak to artifact removal, counter spells. Heck, even
I guess that's a thing too. If you know that they have Gorilla Shaman, island's just a good way to, like, you could just like swap an island for a Seed of the Synod, or just bring the island in and like have an island that's not going to get killed by a Gorilla Shaman or something.
That's true. Yeah, because if you're worried about Gorilla Shaman, you might not want to just take out a Darksteel Citadel. Like, that's the one that I would think would be swapped out, but it's indestructible, so that's nice.
Yeah. So I guess like you have the option of like switching out one of your other islands, like, or just bringing it in and playing an 18th land because you know that they're going to blow up all my lands, so I need all the mana I can get. All right, so that was this list. Sean, do you want to go through a few of your own deck lists, a few of your own brews?
Okay, yeah, I'm not going to go. We're definitely not going to go card by card, but the other versions are like, there's a version that uses Tron lands instead of artifact lands. That's really powerful because when you're not playing Reckless Fireweaver and Disciple of the Vault, so you do have to find other ways to win the game. If you're using Golem Foundry, and if you're not familiar, Golem Foundry is the 3 converted mana cost. Whenever you play an artifact spell, you put a counter on it. You can remove 3 counters to put a 3/3 golem into play. So that's like a repeatable, if you can resolve that spell, which is the hardest part, you can repeatably make just tons and tons of golems. And when I've played that version, if you can get that going even a little bit, a lot of the decks are like scrambling to try to keep up with, like, okay, lightning bolt this guy, galvanic blast that guy, or, you know, doomblade this, and you just have this horde of guys, and you have like a backup plan of, you know, I think every version is playing the galvanic blast package. So I really like the Tron version. It's less susceptible to artifact removal. You've got these starts where you just go 1, 2, 3 Tron lands, and you look at your hand and you're like, oh, I can just dump all of this. You dump all of it, draw equal amount of cards pretty consistently. I've seen versions that have like Lotus Petal in them. Lotus Petal is a pretty cool card that never gets played in Pauper and can fit into some of these lists.
I didn't even know that card was legal in Pauper.
It definitely is.
That card's busted.
Not in Pauper.
Yeah, I guess.
Literally
like
unplayable.
What? Wait! You could cast Gurmag English so fast with that card.
Yeah, and then you're just out of resources.
Yeah, but you have a Gurmag Angler, so who cares?
Just wait a little bit longer and just play a fetch land.
Alright, that's fair. Or play both.
Whoa!
Oh!
You can't gush with Lotus Petals unless you have 5 Lotus Petals.
You're right, though.
There's a card that I need to look. Let's see. The card is Glaze Fiend. So Glaze Fiend is a 0/1 with flying. It costs a colorless and a black. It says, whenever another artifact comes into play under your control, Glaze Fiend gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So built-in evasion with flying, and you can get this thing pretty dang big. So I've really enjoyed this card when I've been going for this version or for that version. I have it in the. It is an artifact itself. So if you're playing like the Golem Foundry, you now have like a way to attack with multiple creatures. You can't activate it at instant speed, but I don't know. The Disciple of the Vault is just so insanely easy to kill. I think the original Affinity lists had Disciple of the Vault and looked enough like just it looked like an Eggs deck, but it was also in an Affinity deck. So like a hybrid deck like that, I think that's had the best results for real.
And that's actually a deck list that I've seen before. Like I've seen Disciple of the Vault Affinity decks.
Yeah. And like, you know, Disciple of the Vault is powerful enough to get banned in Modern, but it's just not good enough for Pauper, apparently. It's just too fragile. Because
Pauper's better than Modern.
Yeah, Modern we don't have Second Sunrise. Well, neither does Modern.
Before we like upset, marginalize a subsection of our player base that love Modern, I will just come out and say that I played Modern recently, and it was actually fun.
Oh, you went to that 1K, didn't you?
Uh-huh.
How'd you do?
I went 3-2. I got like 9th place on Breakers, so that sucked. But yeah, Modern's actually fun now. They banned Kruk Clan Ironworks, and everyone's upset about the Phoenix, the Flat Flaps, but I prefer playing against Flat Flaps and Dredge than I do against KCI, so
yeah,
I think the format has been improved. But anyway,
it sounds like it, because it sounds...
I don't want to, before we alienated a bunch of our listeners and lost a ton of listeners because we said something bad about Modern, I wanted to just,
yeah,
Modern's actually fun, so...
Everybody should understand that we're joking when we make fun of other formats like that.
Except Legacy.
I love Legacy so much. But I don't play Legacy right.
I liked it when there was Deathrite Shaman and I could play Jund.
I did like Deathrite Shaman. Anyway.
That's not Pauper.
That's not Pauper.
Yeah, definitely not Pauper. Yeah, because we try to stay on topic, and so we poke fun at other formats. I will never like EDH. I think that about covers it for eggs lists. They're pretty fragile. You're relying on just a couple of win cons. The decks tend, like, even with... I've ran a version with 12 lands. You draw enough cards in a lot of these that you still flood out, and it's very threat light. So you could just never see one of your threats, and then when you see it, they have the answer. So it's really awkward. That's why I don't think it's like a tier 1 or meta strategy. But the affinity lists do post results every once in a while.
I think this deck's pretty sweet.
Yeah. If you want to play a brew, though, yeah, this is not bad. This is a good way to go.
Yeah, this looks like fun. Mm-hmm. I might play this deck for fun.
And I feel like I have to apologize to the guy that gave you... I don't even know who it is. You never told me their name. But the person...
I don't think you actually know him anyway, so...
Probably not, unless it's...
I know him from when he used to play more competitively. I'd see him at, like, PPTQs and stuff. And now he's on that Pauper crack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had this deck demoralize me because I can't get it to be competitive. And so when I talk about it, I'm going to talk about it negatively because that's the experience that I've had of, like, it's just there's issues with it. There's definitely issues with it.
Cool. Well, I'd be interested to keep an eye on this deck list and see what changes are made in the future, and maybe we'll do a follow-up with it at some point.
End times.
Thank you for listening. That was the show. We are done. If you liked what you listened to and you want to hear more of it and you want it to keep getting better, you can do some stuff to support us. One of the big stuff is become a Patreon at patreon.com/common knowledge. All of our Patreons will contribute towards our stretch goal, which is the 5-card blind tournament, as well as have access to the Common Coliseum. And anyone, not just Patreons, can go to patreon.com/common knowledge and check out the graph and the spreadsheet of each month's power rankings.
5-card blind tournament, just to review, it's not going to be something that you have to make time for. It's just going to be sending in an email. There's a list of the rules when we get it going of what we're going to need from you. It's just a list of 5 cards. We run through the decks, Brandon and I, and you don't have to pay anything to enter when we do this, and we're going to be giving out MTGO traders credit. So you will get something for nothing if you just give us something.
A whole lot of something for a whole lot of something.
Yeah, so...
I guess a little bit of something, because all you really need to do is be a patron to help us make our stretch goal and send us a deck list.
Yeah, and it'll be for everyone, not just the patrons. So, super exciting.
Oh yeah, it is for everybody. You're right.
Yeah, and then Common Coliseum, we're making improvements to that. And we, at the end of this month, we're going to be sending out our first set of signed cards, all of the cards of the week. So you could be a proud owner of some signed Propulsive Research and Gem Palm Polluter.
Gem Palm Polluter. I don't know what we did either, but anyway, we're going to choose one lucky Patreon at random. to send these cards to. And when we hit $100 for our Patreon, we're going to be doing Oubliette as the card of the week. And so one lucky Patreon will get a playset of Oubliettes. And no, if that card's printed in Modern Horizons, that's not going to change anything. That just means that I get to spend less money on Oubliettes. Thank you to our sponsors, puremtgo.com and inkedgaming.com. Use that coupon code CCMTG10 to get yourself a 10% discount at checkout when you go to inkgaming.com and send a little bit towards the network. You can support constructive criticism on YouTube by going and liking and subscribing and favoriting and thumbs upping and all those good things. You can send an email to Common Knowledge at commonknowledgemtg@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out the Facebook page. Just search for Common Knowledge. You can find us on Twitter at CKPodcastMTG. You can find myself on Twitter as well at bclark_CK. And Sean, tell the listeners where you can be found.
You can find me on Twitter if they look for Lobbert, Lobbert 8. And you can also find me on YouTube if you just search for Lobbert. I think that's all we got, so bye everybody!
Bye forever.